Well, I've had an interesting night completing the slides for the Astrology of 2022 seminar. And you'd say, Lori, why didn't you have that done before? And I will say, because I had allotted time in my schedule of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off. Nothing went to plan. Just like I told many of my clients, be flexible. Yeah, I had to be flexible too. So I got everything done. And there's some things I've been looking at for quite a while, in 2022. Basically, once October got here, I started, looking at especially the first quarter of 2022, because I have a lot of readings coming up that are personal transit readings, which is now, by the way, the Astro Energies reading, just because people a lot of times don't understand what transits are. And so I just wanted to make it easier for people who aren't as well-versed in astrology to know, what to sign up for. So I got through all of 2020, and I had a few aha moments. And pretty much, I wasn't wrong with my assessment of it being a maze with a slip and slide. So there are some magical moments in 2022. Don't get me wrong. There's some real powerful moments on a spiritual level, on an esoteric level, and on a mundane level. Oh my God. I wish I would have recorded myself as I was working on the astrology, because there were moments I was either just, by the end, I just started laughing because it was just like, really? The universe has no chill. And of course, the farther we look out, the harder it is to kind of know how it's going to play out, because the potentials and possibilities are pretty wide open. The closer in something is more likely we can see the possibilities, just like anything, any data set. So, in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about the energy of 2022. And just priming the pump for the seminar today. And if you haven't managed to sign up for that, and you're listening to this before 10 a.m. Pacific, get registered, because 2022 is another very interesting year. In the next segment, I'm going to talk about why that is and how long we have in this game. Of intense energy or changeable energy. And so a lot of people ask me about that, and I've been cautious in how I reply, but guys, it's going to be a while. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the what's going to happen in the workshop, because I'm excited about it. Our patron shout-outs, as always. And we're going to talk a little bit about the mystery school as well. And as much as the universe has no chill, I can also guarantee you it has perfect timing. So I've been prepping for the Astrology of 2022 seminar, and looking up the major transits and then correlating with charts, especially around new and full moons. One of the things that kind of gets me when I'm looking up transits in the ephemeris out there in the world is how little people pay attention to lunar transits. They talk about moon phases a lot of times, but there's so little to do with the lunar transits to the planets. And even Mercury and Venus, or the sun, what the sun is doing, where it's connecting. And I would look at a transit and I'd be like, I wonder what else is going on that day. And I'd pull a chart and I'd be like, ooh, all right, that's going to be interesting. There is some wild weather happening next year. That's one thing that really stood out to me is, and I've been saying it, that anybody who denies that climate change is here, man, they just need to go check themselves in somewhere, because it will be completely undeniable to any rational human being. If it, frankly, it should be undeniable at this point. We need to stop trading carbon. It's not going to help. We need to make some serious adaptations pretty damn quick. I really, if I could give one piece of advice for 2022, is grow as much of your own food as you can. And even if you're living in an apartment, you can grow food. Okay? There's going to be just not good crops next year, partly due to weather, and other natural events, and partly due to COVID because of the labor issues. Speaking of labor issues, that ramps up even more. We're building steam. We're building steam. We're ending a Pluto cycle, because Pluto will ingress into Aquarius in 2024. And so we're at the last degrees of a Pluto transit. And that just ramps energy up. And Pluto slows down in Aquarius significantly. And so we're kind of moving to that grinding glacier-like melt or movement, the type that shapes rocks and valleys. And that's what we're looking at with Pluto and Capricorn. I mean, things are changing. And especially younger astrologers, and I'm not disparaging their ability to learn or become good astrologers, but what they often forget, this is the very first time in human history we are consciously aware of Pluto as a celestial body as it transits Capricorn. So all of the stuff written about Pluto and Capricorn was postulation based off of historical record. But here's what we know about history, especially what is most easily accessible by average people and non-academians. And that is, it's a narrative, okay? And it's often filled with propaganda. And I don't care what side you're on. I've talked about this before, like in Coffee with Lori, or when I'm on Discord, talking with people about when I was a senior in high school and I already knew I wanted to study international relations. I was very politically aware from a young age. It's always been an interest. And our teacher in our global studies class, and this was an AP class, he was very much a fan of Ronald Reagan. So he and I did not see eye to eye. And he was busy giving us the Red Scare, because the USSR, I can talk, was still around. This is 1986. And he was talking about how the Russians indoctrinated their kids and blah, 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 just hamming it up. And as I was listening to him, I'm like, you're doing the same thing. He wasn't giving any evidence. He was giving anecdotal stories and, just basically making the other side seem inhuman. And it was ridiculous. As a 17-year-old, I could see it. And I raised my hand and I was like, hey, Mr. Priester, aren't you doing the same thing? Oh, he got mad. No, this is different. I'm like, how is it different? You're indoctrinating us. We've been indoctrinated our entire lives. And the thing is these are stupid stories. It's a stupid narrative. And, oh man, he was just like, he was like, well, you're a communist. And I was like, wow, how McCarthy of you. was like, okay, call me a communist. Whatever. It's like better than being an indoctrinator. And so when you're reading history, you have to be really careful, especially if it's highly opinionated. We don't, we only know certain things. We don't, unless you're a real historian or an anthropologist and you're digging through tons and tons and tons of information and looking at actual daily lives. Because a lot of times what we see are the lives of the upper echelons, people who have money because they could record stuff. But daily living is something we don't really get to see in the past. Now we can, because we everybody has cameras, everybody has cell phones. It's a lot harder to control the narrative unless you control people's narrative, meaning drive outrage, drive strong emotions, etc., get people worked up about something. And then, that's what trends are, getting people worked up or excited or outraged or angry or whatever. And so, and I'm not saying those are always bad, just be aware of it. Be aware when you're drawn into something. So we're finalizing this Pluto and Capricorn transit. Now, I know this can be a confusing term if you're new to astrology, okay? Or you've been studying natal astrology, birth chart astrology. And when I say Pluto and Capricorn in a transit, it may be a little confusing as to what that is. So a Pluto and Capricorn transit is the current movement of the celestial body known as Pluto, okay? It is not the Pluto in your natal chart, okay? A lot of chart software will show the transits outside of the wheel because they're still moving. Your natal chart is static, okay? I explained that in the December 10th, 2020 Patreon post. Okay, it's free. It's open to the public. You can read it. I don't charge for that. Okay, because I think it's important to know how to make a chart with the software on astro.com and then understand what the little squiggles and lines kind of mean. It's very basic. These are very short videos. It was one of the first events I hosted when I started growing on TikTok, and I think I had all of 2,000 followers when that happened. Pretty fun to see the growth in a year. But anyway, so when I give the seminar today, this is going to be about global transits. These impact each of us on a personal level, okay? And I'll talk a little bit about that. I only have an hour and a half, and I have a reading to do later, so I have to really stay on time. That's why I want to do the podcast. Then I can, just say, hey, listen to the podcast for more information. So when I'm talking about the astrology of 2020 and how it impacts you, you need to know how to look at your chart. You need to know what I'm referring to, okay? So there's some resources. The December 10th Patreon post will be very useful for those of you still trying to figure out how to make sense of the squiggles and lines. Remember, astrology isn't really a self-study thing. It is a pretty serious field of study that really requires help to learn because it's very complex and there's lots of layers to it. And just reading about it for a year is a great introduction. Studying something for a year is a great introduction. But any subject takes about 10,000 hours to master, okay? Not perfect, but master your understanding. So, in 10,000 hours is about 5 years, okay? And it's not just 5 years, you pick up a book every couple of months, right? It's doing it daily. So, anyway, 2022 is a hell of a year. If you can garden in any way, shape, or form, do it. I'm going to start my seeds in January, and I'll do a garden along with Lori. I live in an apartment. I am on the bottom floor. I have a great patio. Now, not everybody has a patio, so we'll do some indoor container gardening, and we'll do some outdoor container gardening. And I will walk you through that. I'm a lazy gardener. What do I mean by that? Well, you see, I grew up on 2.5 acres in town. It's kind of suburban. It was its own town, but just outside of Portland. And most people did not have 2 acres in town. My parents worked really hard. That's a Malcolm inside bark. Yeah, thank you for the inside bark. I know those people are irritating you. Sorry, buddy. For those of you who are new to listening, Malcolm is my dog, and he has a very good inside bark. He's protecting Mom. I don't edit these out. But anyway, so I grew up with a garden. My parents worked really, really hard all the time. They worked really hard to make that place very beautiful. And we had garden, and they made gardening hard. And they get great pride out of working very hard. I did not like it. I did not like how my back hurt. I didn't like getting all sweaty. I have a Libra moon. Well, so does my mom, but she also has Mars and Venus in Taurus. So what can I say? So I didn't start gardening until my Saturn return. After my Saturn return, I got interested in herbalism and decided to plant my own herb garden. And I started a bunch of herbs from seed. And I learned all kinds of tips and tricks on gardening. And I had a wonderful cottage garden with all edible plants when my kids were little, when we moved to Camino Island. And then we moved on to another house on Camino Island, and I went to raised beds. And, maybe 5-6 years that worked. And then people were less interested in gardening with me, and I didn't get as much help, and it was physically laborious, and it was starting to hurt my back, and I'm opposed to my back hurting. But I love gardening. And so, inside bark, buddy. No, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you. You should see the look on his face. No, let's not bark. Come here. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, those groans get me every time. All right, I'm going to digress from the story really quick. But if you didn't see Malcolm's Christmas card in the Discord, you should go see it. Molly, one of my moderators, and a patron, she took a beautiful picture of him when we did our little cookie party earlier in December. He's just so dang cute. But anyway, I digressed. Back to the gardening. So I went to container gardening, and it was just doubly effective. So we'll be doing that in 2022. Why am I so hot on that? Well, the astrology of 2022 is showing some really unseasonable weather. Not so fun. It's not going to be good for farming. There's going to be a lot of disruption in food supply next year. And this isn't just in the United States. This is global. So again, unseasonable weather. It's going to be pretty much, we're not going to get a great spring in the Northern Hemisphere. It's going to be very, very wet. And I mean very wet. We're going to see historic levels of precipitation, lots of flooding, and it's just not going to be great. So if you can grow your own leafy greens, or tomatoes, or cucumbers, whatever you like to eat. I will say, if you're gardening and you know your neighbors, make sure if they're gardening, you know who's doing the zucchini. Not everybody needs to grow zucchini. Those of you who know, you know, right? And for those of you who don't, that's because zucchini really produces a lot of zucchini squash. And so you can end up with just like way too much. There can be way too much of something. Zucchini is one of those things. So we'll be doing gardening. I've got these wonderful grow bags that I'm itching to use because you can grow potatoes in them and onions and other root vegetables. And they don't have to be huge, and they're reusable. So like if you move, you can empty it out and pack them, so you're not stuck with these heavy pots. For your seasonal things. So that's pretty cool. So those are things we're going to do in 2022. To me, it's not enough to have knowledge unless you know how, you're applying it. Okay? Being forewarned is forearmed only if you equip yourself with the tools and skills to do something about it. That's why people get paralyzed by knowledge. That's why people get afraid when I give my predictions, because they become aware and they don't know how to apply the knowledge. Okay? So, years ago, when I was finally getting some mentorship around my more metaphysical abilities, my intuitive abilities, and this was like post-Saturn return, or the year of my Saturn return, actually, was when it started. I asked, I know my purpose involves this kind of thing. I figured this much out, but what else am I supposed to do? And they said, well, you're supposed to teach what you know. And I looked at my mentor and I went, okay, I know a lot of stuff. I've spent my life learning. And I'm like, exactly what part of what I know am I supposed to teach? Because, we've all been taught to specialize, right? By the way, the era of the specialist is coming to a close. Polymaths will be in great demand moving forward, especially as Pluto ingresses into Aquarius. And my mentor just said, well, everything. You teach everything you know. If you know something, teach it. And I was like, that is a really wide net. I don't know how to wrap my head around that. Well, I do now. Many years later, I get it now. So just like you know me as Lori the astrologer, but I'm Lori the former singer. I'm Lori the business coach and developer. I'm Lori the world traveler and political analyst. I'm Lori the mom, and I teaching parenting courses in human communications and resiliency studies. I've studied a lot of stuff and learned it and applied it. I taught parenting courses for 14 years. Mostly to make me a better parent. I was trying to undo a lot of patterns in my family, and I needed better tools in my toolbox, and teaching taught me, okay? Because when you teach, you learn, and anyone who loves to teach mostly does it, so they learn. Just like I love astrology, I love learning. I learn something new in every single reading. Every single reading, because every single person expresses energy just a little bit differently. So if you want to get really good at astrology, you read a lot of charts. So, yeah, so there's that. So next year, there's a bunch of things I'll be teaching so you can make use of the energy. And the knowledge, and put some skills in, gain some new skills, okay? And I'm not going to be the only person teaching. So in the next segment, we're going to do patron shout-outs, and then following that, we'll talk about the mystery school a little bit. But before I wind up this segment, I want to talk to you a little bit more about 2022. There are some dates that really have me looking out. Now, I've talked about April 12th. I think I've been saying the 17th, but it's April 12th, which is the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. And on a personal level, that can be absolute magic, especially if you are an energy worker of any kind. And that could be a witch, a light worker, a shaman, a healer of any kind, an artist, a creative, a filmmaker, musician, writer, anybody who's creative, anybody who works with energy. It is magic sauce, and we'll be focusing on that a lot in the Patreon. Those who are awakened are in for a ride. Now, the energy will be really, really strong. The astral will be very active, and knowing how to navigate the astral tides is important. And a lot of people have very overstimulated solar plexuses, and kind of need to tune those down a little bit. And so I'm going to be tapping a few friends who are great metaphysical teachers and practitioners to teach at my mystery school that's starting, the Awake Space. So the Awake Space podcast is already in effect. We've got the Awake Space Patreon, and coming in 2022 is the Awake Space Modern Mystery School, where we're applying esoteric and metaphysical principles into modern living, and hopefully progressing and evolving the narrative. I'm really excited about this. Now, I'm not just going to launch it willy-nilly in January. I've taken time off in January from reading in just a couple days to get the beginnings of that setup. And of course, patrons, as always, get first dibs at things. And so I'm very excited about that. And so I'll talk more about that in the section after patron shout-outs. So let's go do that. All right, it's time for patron shout-outs. Huge thanks to all of my supporters on Patreon. Without you, this podcast wouldn't happen, and the TikToks. You make that possible, and you help me be in my purpose, and I am forever grateful to you for your support. Now, patrons at the Astro Adventure and above get the lunar horoscopes I write. Now, that's not for your moon, but that is the lunar transits, and I write those just about every 2.5 days or so. Oh my gosh, I haven't looked in a while, but we are at 299 patrons. Wouldn't it be cool if we made it to 300? So let's give a big thank you. Here's your shout outs. I'm going to say Aisling. Now, it looks Gaelic, and I don't speak that language. So I think it might be Ailing. If it makes you feel better, I used to go to Wales, but I don't speak Welsh either. All right. So I appreciate you. And I know I just butchered your name. Laura, Josh, Katie, Tio, Michaela, Sarah, or Sarah. My daughter's name is Sarah. So Sarah or Sarah, Carla, Kelly, Amilcar, Tafari, Alina, Lori, Ingrid, Karen, Monica, Natalie, Alicia, Miriam, Sarah, Jay, Stacy, Bree, Rachel, Bambi, Jasmine, Tammy, Kristen, Cece, Laura, Alyssa, Bianca, Stevie Nitz, Hudsa, Sherry, Riley, Charlotte, Dana, Denise, Sabrina, Shelby, Lisette, Jackie, Layla, Brandy. Big thank you to all of you for being supporters. Let me take a good look here in the Discord. I just want to say how proud I am of the community that is formed in the Awake Space. The amount of love and support that is there is absolutely outstanding. Let me also give massive thanks to my mods. Kathy is Sister Luck. She is our dear, sweet, compassionate, community-minded rock star. Chris, who is also my other pair of hands, she's the one who gets the links out for readings to all of my clients, and she's kind of heads up making sure that the traffic lights are working in the Patreon. We've got Casey who writes with me and enforces posting. She's and my hype person. She loves hyping, so she's been hyping stuff, which I love. I love her enthusiasm and a hell of a good student too. Molly is our discount queen. If you need to know what the discount codes are and what's current, she's got that down. Also, wonderful student. And Yogi Hannah. And Hannah has trained with me in more than astrology. She's one of my certified leaders of a learning process that incorporates life and business. It's something we'll talk about later. We'll talk about that in 2022. But it was to revolutionize the learning process to know if you really wanted to own your own company, or if you wanted maybe to form a workers' co-op, or which is an employee-owned business, or if you prefer just having a more fulfilling job working for somebody else. But it's a self-actualization process, and Hannah is certified in the process I developed. And she is a wonderful yoga instructor as well. So big thanks to my mods. The holiday venting channel on our Discord has seen its fair share of use. Again, lots of people getting COVID, and so we're supporting everybody with love and appreciation, and we know everybody's been as careful as they can be. This is a very tricky time. There's going to be a lot of misinformation. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next segment too, besides talking about the mystery school. We've got the general astrology thread. We've got people dealing with weather. We've got people dealing with all kinds of stuff. But coming in for support. So being active is this Discord's MO. So sorry, I was just reading something here. So So we've got a lot of conversations happening. The news headlines thread is obviously busy because it's been active over the last few days. So that's what we do. That's what we do as a group. We support each other. We did a little Christmas open house. My Christmas plans changed and reversed. I was supposed to be by myself. But my daughter and son-in-law came over for a couple hours. So that was nice. Not gonna lie. It was nice I made pizza. I make a killer pizza dough. And so we had a really yummy pizza, and we watched Matilda and drank really yummy hot chocolate with peppermint schnapps. So we rolled low key. And my son surprised me with his very first TikTok being a hi mom for Christmas. So you can see me duetting that if you want to give him a follow. He's going to be creating some of his own content. We're still kind of working through that, but it was nice to see him kind of get past his nervousness, and I'm glad that he chose to do it as a hi mom. It was the best Christmas surprise ever. So what can I say? I'm a Cancerian. So I just really love and appreciate all of you patrons. So thank you so much. And if you're not a patron, well, geez, why not? Join us. There's a lot of bennies. And you're going to find out a little bit about what patrons are going to be getting into in 2022 if they choose. And I'm excited about this. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what we'll be doing in 2022 at the Mystery School. Couldn't have picked better timing. And honestly, I would love to tell you, I went, oh yeah, Jupiter and Neptune will be conjunct in Pisces, and that's the year I'm going to start the Mystery School. No, that is not what happened. I was like, people really want to know more about the esoteric knowledge, the energy work, the practical applications of knowing how to use their astrological knowledge. I think it's time to get the Mystery School started. And then as I was like, I knew the transits, but I had not consciously done this. It was a very subconscious thing. And I started laughing. I was like, well, there couldn't be perfect timing, And I've tried over the years in different ways to put this information out there, like different sides of it, because it's very multidimensional. I always say, if you've ever seen the chess in Star Trek, that's a lot like some of what I'm trying to put out there, and it's got lots of layers and dimensions. And so I've had bits and pieces over the years, which was great because it taught me a lot. It taught me how to perfect and refine certain processes and learning processes for people, how to not just reach other learning styles, but help people move from theory to execution on whatever it is. So all of the things I teach, the mechanics of it have been well tested over the last 20 some years. And so it's nice to be able to kind of thread it all together. And just like I mentioned earlier, that teacher said, your job is to teach what you know. And I was like, that's a lot. And of course, kept acquiring knowledge. And now I know how to do it. And it just took until it was the right time. So 2022 is the right time for the Mystery School. What's a Mystery School? Well, a Mystery School is kind of what it sounds like. It's where you study the mysteries, the things that are less known, or the things that are kept hidden and out of view. It's not closed practices where but it has some elements to a closed practice. These are places where people are mentored. Now, some mystery schools had indoctrination, and inductions and ceremony. We're not really going to do that. I don't want it to be like a secret society, but you're going to get more out of it if you participate. That's something I'm going to say. Just lurking is only going to get you so far. Okay, so participation is going to help hugely. There's going to be a wide variety of information on offer. So not only are we going to have the astrology, because duh, and again, duh, I think that's the best answer for that one. Of course there's going to be astrology classes, but also professional development for intuitive business owners. So whether you're a card reader or a healer, an energy worker, Reiki practitioner, there'll be some courses on how to run your practice, including like client management, some of the nuts and bolts, because a lot of times creative people or intuitive people, they're really good at what they do, but they don't know how to get things set up. We have an amazing array of professionals in our Patreon. Amazing. And so there's going to be a network so you can support one another. I learned the hard way. I'm not taking outside referrals. I am only hiring from within the community. And so, there'll be, and that includes teachers, so teachers that are teaching subject matters or offering services like coaching, okay? Those are people within the community. So my best friend and fellow coach, Kirsten, okay? She pops into the Discord now and then. She is an amazing coach, and she's one of the most loving human beings I know. She and I have studied parallel subject matter. In fact, when we first got to know each other, we were like, yes, we have studied these energy techniques. Yes, we have studied these philosophies, and I'll have her on the podcast soon because it's just an interesting parallel. In fact, we even read the same sci-fi books as kids. And some of them aren't super well known. So it was just very fascinating. But she is one of the most loving human beings I know, and is an absolute amazing coach, and really helps you learn to love and appreciate yourself in important ways and find your capabilities. She too is trained in my processes and is a facilitator of those processes. So Kirsten will be part of that. There are some other patrons that I haven't talked to yet. So you might be wondering, is it me? Who I will be tapping to teach certain things, subject matters. And because there's a certain philosophy that needs to line up. It needs to be a progressive spirituality. We are not going to be teaching things that move us backwards. We're going to be teaching things that move forward and progress not only our understanding and our skill sets, but also the narrative. And so there are other places. If you want to learn something very traditional or something that's closed practice, you need to go find. There are places. There are, and mentors out there for that. We're doing a progressive, evolutionary approach, which is not about constant growth. In fact, I'll argue it's kind of a full circle thing, but it's just an evolutionary mindset where we look at growing our consciousness and applying it into our physical everyday life. Okay, so there is that. Let's see. That's what I'm excited about, and why I'm focusing on economics and the business side of things as well. Some real practical stuff. Now, do you have to be an intuitive reader for that? No. I think just economically, people need to be independent. I've been banging that drum for the last 15 years, really hard. One reason is because if the bad guys are the only ones making money, then hello, this is where we end up. But also, if it isn't about becoming a millionaire or a bajillionaire, it's about learning how to sustain yourself economically. And it's hard to do that as a solo operator. It's much easier if you can network and work cooperatively with other people, either as a formal co-op or working just in a referral network. And I'm not talking MLMs, can't stand that stuff. So some of the stuff I want to teach next year are the communications skills necessary to work and collaborate with other people, so that you're more than just looking for like-minded people, you're looking for like-hearted people, and you have the communication skills to kind of work through things so you can community organize, be involved in your local communities, take over school boards, things like that, and run worker-owned businesses. One of my issues with some of the cooperative models, not all, but kind of the old school cooperative models, is the consensus models that happen, and you can end up in a 6-hour meeting that's just not cool. My Mars is Sag and my Venus Gemini are just like, oh, hell no. You need streamlined processes where people's voices are heard, but, we don't need 6-hour meetings. We just don't. There are things that can be covered in emails and surveys, and we can leverage technology, because technology did not create these problems. Not knowing how to use it did. I'm going to push technology all year long in 2022 because there's going to be a vilification of it, as there has been over the last 30 years. And the reason for that is, imagine we have more power when we hold our smartphone in our hand than any ancestor ever did. So why wouldn't the media vilify it? Why wouldn't they tell parents, oh, you don't want your kids to use technology? I always allowed my kids to use technology, but I actively supervised the use of that technology until they reached a certain age. And then we had other deals, like I had certain things they had my password to, obviously nothing super sensitive. And I had access to their passwords, and that was that simple. In fact, there's still stuff we let each other access, It's just part of how it goes. And we had discussions about things and rules about things, So that's very important. As we go forward, we want to leverage technology. And you're going to hear a lot about how, oh no, it's not possible. I know it's possible. I spent years and years and years making a lot of mistakes to learn how to run an online business with very low capital money investment, so that I could build it. And so teaching that model is something that's really important to me, so that I purposely learned how to do it so I could teach other people. That's something I did intentionally. I didn't just do it for me. I wanted to teach it because the more I got excited about the idea that, oh, wait a minute, what if the good guys made money? That was exciting to me. And it still is. And it's perfect timing with the transits of 2022. Politically, next year is a very interesting year in the United States because it's our midterm elections where the U.S. House flips seats. It's going to be contentious. I mean, we already know we're polarized, right? But there's just to the nth degree political shenanigans. And one of the things I saw putting together the slides for today's seminar, and if you can't make it, it will be available for streaming on Vimeo. And so you just want to stay tuned. I'll get that out there. All participants, even if you signed up and you can't make it, you get access to it. But if you haven't signed up, you haven't, bought a ticket yet, just in January, that video will be available to the wider public. It'll be available to people who've signed up for it hours after it's done, probably by tomorrow. But anyway, guys, there's a lunar eclipse conjunct Uranus, conjunct the North Node on election day. And I knew we had the lunar eclipse. I knew we had the Uranus North Node conjunction with it. But I hadn't paid attention to the date, like completely. I was like, okay, I know that's happening out in November. And as I was writing out all of the transits, I looked at that date and I went, oh God, that's election day, isn't it? And I didn't really know that November 8th was the first Tuesday in November until I looked it up and I went, oh crap, a lunar eclipse, and a lunar eclipse is a full moon. And I'm like, oh. And it happens early in the morning. So that means there's going to be all kinds of shenanigans at the polls. And it's not just the election, though. Now, this is a global transit on top of it. And so guess what? It is natural events. There's probably going to be, from basically July through November, it is just a shit show. It's a murky, hazy beginning of the year, a murky, hazy spring. We move into the summer solstice, and it's like July before we get summer, right? And then all of it, not everywhere, but most places. And then in the States, maybe Canada. And I haven't looked at a lot of other locations just yet. And as you know me, I do everything, over and over and over. As we get closer to a date, I get more information to you. But oh my gosh, it's just, I looked at that and I just was like, oh, fuck monkeys, really? I'll give you my best sense of it today in the seminar is all I can tell you. Anyway, if we want to get this published before the seminar, I should probably wind this up. But once again, huge thanks to all of my patrons, my moderators. You guys are amazing. I appreciate you. A big shout out to Rita for doing the artwork. And she and I are talking about some other ways we're going to be working together too. Looks like some marketing. But we'll be having some conversations in January about that. I'm very excited. Rita is a very capable artist for sure. I'm super excited about that. She's working on Luna now. Luna's looking really good. And Luna is our character for Living by Luna, which is one of the classes. And some of the stuff that patrons are going to get access to in January after I get it finished putting together. That's why I took the time off to create it. I know I said I'd end, but I have Venus and Gemini, so just give me a second. I'm going to get the learning portals open in the Modern Mystery School, the Awake Space Modern Mystery School. And Living by Luna will have a more formalized space. Casey and I are working on very specific journal setups and some written material. So that's going to go in, and Cosmic Surfers is going to have their space with some courses, etc. I'm super excited about what's coming down the line. And without you, none of this would be happening. So I want to thank you again. All right. Until next time, guys. Hold tight. Hold tight. Hold tight. And keep your seatbelts on, because we're going to be bumpy. Oh, I promised to talk about this before at the beginning. How long is all of this going to last? Like, how many years are we going to go through change after change after change? We are in a significant amount of change, intensity-wise, for the next 5 years. And then we move into a whole nother situation. So, but for the next 5 years or so, we're in for, significant, intense changes, and the likes of which we really haven't experienced as a global community. So it's not just pandemic, there's a whole lot. This has been coming. It's social, it's cultural, it's the massive systemic change I've been talking about. And guys, if this all happened at one time, it would be a lot. That's why it's spread out over years. But we're really in for a long haul of change, really until about 2035 to 2038. And so this is not as fast as you'd think. And there's some really good reasons for that. So, but the main intensity can last through the next 4 or 5 years. It'll never be like 2020. We won't have 2021. It'll be more like each year has its own flavor as we rework things. So I don't want you to be despondent. I've got you. I just want you to understand it's not magically stopping and we're not moving to unity consciousness, and it's not going to be Shangri-La. We are called to action and service. You can't just sit back and wait for things to happen. Okay, guys? So, and I'm right here. I'm right here for you, and I'll be giving you the best information I can. Okay? Alrighty. Now I'm ending the podcast so I can get ready, because the seminar is in 4 hours. There we go. See you then.